Dominic Paulo, we're here at the JCT Traffic Signal Symposium, so I want to first of all just ask about INRIX and your floating vehicle data. For those who may not know what FVD is, in a nutshell, explain what it is.
So principally, Paul, FCD data is data collected from embedded devices within vehicles, GPS, and they're collected in real time, and traditionally we collected that data in real time, amalgamated it together and provided real-time speeds on roads. But everything we collect, we store also, which enables us to provide products such as Signal Analytics.
So basically what you're saying is, as well as doing real-time traffic information that can accurately describe the situation on just about every road in the country, you've got 20 years or so of historic data. So explain to me what you're doing when it comes to Signal Analytics with that historic data.
So with Signal Analytics, we actually take each individual vehicle and the trace of that individual vehicle and measure that trace actually through a junction. So we know the performance of how those vehicles have actually traversed that junction. We normalise that for all vehicles at every intersection, so that we actually have a uniform picture of how a junction is performing.
And Darren, you've given £15 million from the DfT to authorities across the country. They've either got £500,000 or £250,000 to upgrade their signals. I guess the Signal Analytics data that you have helps you understand the effect that money, that investment has had on improving the flow of traffic.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. So we issued grants of, as you say, $250,000 or £500,000 to 39 local authorities, and that's now just about come to an end. We ended that programme in March. The fact that we issued £250,000 chunks of money means that we couldn't really expect authorities to do an awful lot of their own evaluation. In a budget of that size, there isn't a lot of capacity to do that. But it was very important that this being pretty much the first targeted signals funding we've given in many, many years, it was very important that we were able to prove the case for why this is successful. So being able to use the product that Dominic has, that INRIX have developed, and be able to use their ability to manipulate floating vehicle data has allowed us centrally to understand what's happened in each of the authorities without placing a big evaluation impact on those authorities. So it's allowed us to step back slightly and remotely undertake not only very low impact assessment, but an assessment that has scalability and gives us some general answers across the whole piece. So we know individually how junctions have performed, but more importantly for me and the civil servants and for ministers, we know overall how well that funding has performed, and we have the kind of answers we now need to be able to make the case for future funding. We can see the overall success of the funding we've issued.
So Dominic, let's take an example of Hertfordshire. What have you found analysing the junctions that have had improvements thanks to the funding by using your floating vehicle data historically to see the before and after?
So it was actually fantastic of Hertfordshire, because they actually invested in Signal Analytics with the funding that Darren has mentioned, and they were able to articulate exceedingly well the before and after, and actually do a more detailed assessment, and the results I think speak for themselves. They were absolutely fantastic. Hertfordshire's pleased, we're pleased, Darren is pleased. I think it's a good way to show how the investment is actually going forward, being spent appropriately, and actually leveraging benefit.
One of the things that strikes me though is if you've got all this historic data, it's not even as though an authority has to gather the data beforehand, do the work, and then look and see what the difference is. You can actually look at it another way and go, right, we've done this work, actually what effect has it had? Because that data, that before data, is already sitting there.
Indeed, the product allows you to actually look back at any particular period in time. As we all know, traffic demands change due to different circumstances, and I'm going to say it's a constant evaluation process to make sure that actually your network is performing optimally by looking how it's performed historically.
And Darren, when it comes to the funding that you can secure from the overall DfT budget, I guess having something that can show very clearly we did this and it had this positive effect makes it easier for you to hopefully get some more funding in the future that you can use on more intersections in more parts of the country.
Yeah, it does, Paul. Yeah, that's exactly that. And of course, here we are at the JCT Symposium. There's lots of talk about the very detailed signal analytics programs we have, the LinSigs and the other software that we have that will give you very detailed analysis of traffic signals, and that's important. But the work that we're doing with Dominic and INRIX gives us a much lighter touch, much easier to understand, simple metric that's much more scalable. We could potentially roll that out across the country, and we could analyse signals more widely than we could ever do by investing in lots of detailed analysis, because it's just too expensive and too complex to do that. And I think ultimately, I think we have to remember how little we understand about signal performance in general in the UK, and actually we understand very little, and this gives us an opportunity to start to correct that and start to get some much more generalised, high level understanding of the performance of signals and where we should be investing and what we should be investing to make a general uplift to signal operation in the country.
And finally, it's quite interesting when we sit here at the JCT Traffic Signal Symposium and we listen to so many great new ideas, but actually, potentially, the best thing we could do is just make sure that the existing infrastructure we have works.
I think that's absolutely right. I think the work that we've done with Signal Analytics now, that the results of the £15 million we spent have shown that actually the benefits in terms of reduced journey time, in terms of more predictable, smoother journeys, the benefits in terms of how we get active travel and vulnerable road users to safely access the road network can be improved by basic signal maintenance more cheaply and more quickly than pretty much any other intervention.